Yep. I support people's right to go fishing. And you mentioned before that some of the fishermen here are upset that the seals are catching their fish, and in some ways seals are an opportunist. Like if you're pulling in a fish and it's taking a little while and a seal sees this thing in front of it, it is going to grab it. But the fishery here is in dire straits, and it's not because of the seals. The problem here is the commercial fishing, and I discovered yesterday it's legal for some of the fishermen here. They use an 1 7/8 net with a liner, which effectively makes it like a 1-inch mesh. Like there's barely a Western country in the world that allows a fishing mesh that small. You're taking tiny little fish that are bait fish. So you go cleaning all of those out, and it's no wonder your fishery's in dire straits. Second thing, they're allowing, I call it bottom trawling, but it's like dragging, or where you're dragging nets along the bottom, and on the shallow waters like this, when you take the net height, you're taking the entire water column. Like the commercial guys are cleaning this area out. Then third to that, you've got the squid fishery here, where such a huge percentage of the east coast squid is all taken from a little area just out from here. Like it was, I'm trying to think of the numbers, it was 4 million pounds got taken from a little wee 10 by 10 mile area just nearby here. You take that much, squid is one of the key sources of food for other fish in this area. The problem with the fishery here, it's not the seals. The problem is commercial fishing. And if you look at the number of people in Nantucket who are employed by commercial fishing, it's tiny. Most of those commercial boats are coming from town.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And it's it's corporatized. Like it's just big corporations. There was one guy.
Well, there's some small guys like in Rhode Island and parts of Massachusetts. There's still some small fishermen. You heard about the national park that was just established off the coast here.
Man, that was amazing.
That a good thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like those national parks. Like if you look at the future of this part of the world, it can be an environmental leader. You've got just 80 miles offshore, you've got the Gulf Stream pushing tropical waters up there. You've got whale sharks, you've got marlin, you've got mahi-mahi, you've got turtles, you've got all of this tropical stuff.
Yeah.
80 miles offshore, you come in here and you've got this, much colder climate, you've got great white sharks, you've got seals, you've got all of this wonderful ecosystem. And this area can become a world leader in this. You've got Woods Hole just over the way. They're one of the greatest organisations for oceanic research anywhere in the world. And yet, here we are talking about, we want to introduce a seal abatement campaign to try and reduce seal numbers. And I think that the problem we've got, and I see this in many parts of the world that I work, we look at a very short time frame and we might see, hey, seal numbers have started to come back. We need to control those numbers. The best thing we do with nature is we step back and then say, hey, seals were part of the ecosystem here. To some degree, like a lot of the sharks got killed off. We killed a lot of the seals. Sharks, every time you catch a great white, there's a percentage of them will die. And so there wasn't a lot of great whites. In some ways, that's perhaps why seal numbers are coming back. In fact, the shark issue is one that's interesting for me. Like in Australia, they introduced a cull program to kill off great white sharks when they had some shark attacks.
How long ago was that?
2 years ago.
Okay.
And so just recently, great white sharks are on Appendix 1 of CITES. We shouldn't be allowed to go killing them. And yet man has sort of stepped in and said, well, we want to go swimming and blah, 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 blah. It's crazy. We've got to just accept it. If you want to go swimming in an area that has sharks, there is a chance of you dying. But the chances are still almost infinitesimal.
I know.
The number of shark deaths around the world averages 5 per year over the last 20 years. We lose, I think at that time you probably lost more people to vending machines tipping over on top of it. At one stage there was 30 deaths a year from vending machines, people trying to get a free Coke out of them. But there's plenty of ways you can die in this world. The odds of you dying by a shark attack are basically zero. But you get a whole lot of tourists out here, and there's a couple of great whites are seen on the surface, and next thing they're saying, hey, maybe we should be culling the sharks.
That just shows your human nature, how afraid we are of things. It's not. It goes deeper than just sharks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, look at our political world right now, where we're at. I mean, everybody's scared of each other. I mean, it's bizarre.
but the greatest threat to sharks by a long way is shark finning, and those fins, they go to Asia for shark fin soup.
How are we going to convince Asia? I mean, they're reasonable people, and for most cases.
The hard thing is,
I mean, they're taking the poaching that's happening in Africa.
Yeah,
I mean, that's going to Asia too, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, it's going in Asia. We did a series of missions in Asia last year, and pretty much every target mission, the animals that were being taken were being shipped to China. So there were pangolin, which is like a little reptilian anteater type thing, sea turtles, tigers, rhino, elephants. They're all being poached, and the parts are being shipped back to China for medicinal purposes and for delicacies. And it's a disgrace what's happening, but it's very hard for someone like me to influence the Chinese people. My role is to go and address the poaching and to try and tell the story of what is happening in these countries through the television show and social media. But trying to stop that demand in China is very difficult.
How do we do that?
Well, there are some NGOs working on it. So at the moment, there was the Chinese basketballer who played in the NBL. He's been very significant in China running this campaign, and that shark fin soup last year for the first time ever reduced in demand. It's a small step in the right direction, but there's a long way to go. But
it's all education for those folks.
Yeah, it's education.
And it's the government allowing them to be educated.
Here's the thing: is the government is in some ways complicit. Like they turn a blind eye to the rhino horn. Rhino horn is used as an aphrodisiac. Often it's for, like, if you have a stag do, it's sort of a status symbol. You hit some ground up rhino horn and I don't know whether they snort it like cocaine or whatever, but it's the status symbol, and the government needs to crack down on it. And some pressure is starting to be borne on the Chinese government over this, but education in the West has a role to play. The more governments in the West that go bitching to China and say, hey, you know, you're hunting these rhino, imagine the furore if someone in America started saying, I'm going to pay $1 million for every panda penis that people deliver to me because I think it has aphrodisiac properties. The Chinese would be extremely upset about that. The Chinese don't seem to get upset over things like rhino horn. They don't have anything like that left in their country, you know. So there's like this double standard going on, and I think long term the Chinese government needs to step up. That needs pressure from outside governments, but at the same time we need to stop the poaching that's happening now, and that's where teams like my team has a role to play, to try and go in and catch poachers and tell the story of what's happening.
So you go in and try to catch them?
Yeah,
we've
caught lots of poachers in various countries. We've
but only fishing, right? Only on the fishing side.
No, we've done plenty of land stuff. We did anti-poaching in Sumatra last year. I've been to Africa a couple of times. Season 3 will all be filmed in Africa. So we're going to South Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, going to Democratic Republic of Congo, which is in many ways has become the most difficult place for poaching right now. I'll give you an example. In South Africa, in a couple of years, they have shot and killed 500 poachers, and they have lost over 100 rangers. Like in any other country, that is considered a war zone. Like Africa is under siege right now, and the poachers have. It used to be the poachers in Kruger National Park were little bushmen, relied on stealth and their cunning to escape, and amazing bush skills. They've gradually, the odds caught up with them. They've been all killed off and in prison now. They've been replaced by these angry young men from Johannesburg and from Pretoria. And these guys are angry and willing to fight. And so the whole game has changed, become much more dangerous. So many rangers being killed and shot and wounded.
Who's hiring these guys to do the poaching? I'm assuming they're from
a lot of them
South Africa. A lot of them. A lot of
South Africa. Some of them are from Mozambique, who come down through the border. There's a lot of immigration from the north south into South Africa right now. And you shoot a rhino, $10,000 to $20,000 sitting on the end of that rhino's head, and that's pushing it. So a lot of them are effectively freelancers. They know if they shoot a rhino, cut off the horn, there's 10 grand sitting there in front of them, and the channels for them to take that, it goes once. The channels are typically Chinese, so there will be Chinese nationals who are living in South Africa, Mozambique, Kenya, Botswana, and some of them are brought in to build roads, some of them are businessmen, but anyway, they set up the channels to smuggle that product back to China. And the middlemen are part of the problem. Like, we've got one mission next year where we are going to be targeting those smuggling rings. Last year we broke 2 of those rings in China that were smuggling. One of them was smuggling pangolin, which is, I mentioned before, it's like this little anteater type thing. The most smuggled mammal in the world.
What is it about that animal.
So
that what does that do?
the traditional medicine thing is they take the scales off it, grind it up into a powder, and that gets given to women who are having problems with lactation when they're breastfeeding. No scientific merit to it, like no peer-reviewed papers to say this is a beneficial thing. It's just simply a traditional medicine, and it has resulted in the pangolin becoming the most smuggled mammal in the world. And pangolin has gone from being least threatened 20 years ago. Now, of the 8 species of pangolin around the world, 7 of them critically endangered, and 1 of them endangered, all to satisfy this traditional medicine market.